Good morning, everyone, and welcome to class. Please, make yourselves comfortable. Today, we are taking a look at the Star Wars The Clone Wars, episode number 3, entitled The Shadow of the Maleficent. I can't do it! Entitled The Shadow of the Malevolent. Hold on. Entitled The Shadow of the Malevolence. So as I said, sit down, make yourself comfortable, and we will talk about the things I enjoyed about this episode, the things I did not enjoy about this episode, and we'll wrap it all up with a moral which we can take away from this episode that we can all apply to our lives. Ready, set, go. Episode ranking. This episode, I feel, was pretty mid. It wasn't like the first episode of the series where I just didn't care about anything, but it was more like sometimes it captured my interest and sometimes it did not. So if I was to rank this episode, I would probably give it 2.5 stars. Like I said, some parts of it I quite enjoyed, other parts of it I didn't like so much. And mostly it came down to I was fairly apathetic towards this episode. Again, it's much better than episode number 1, in which I said I had a similar opinion. This video captured my interest much more. So, with that being said, I'm going to talk about some things that stood out to me that I enjoyed in this episode, and just one thing that was kind of confusing in this episode. So, we're gonna do that right here in this next section. So the first thing that stood out to me was General Grievous punching the head off of one of the battle droids. I thought, oh man, that seems very wasteful. But it kind of worked for me because the show also called it out by Count Dooku saying that the battle droids are expensive. I was like, oh, I'm on the same page with Count Dooku. Awesome.
Grievous, those battle droids are expensive.
I think the same way Christopher Lee does. So that's something where it's like, Star Wars bad guys, they tend to sometimes make them like a little too aggressive and they just, throw these outbursts. Which, by the way, wasn't what Darth Vader did. When Darth Vader force choked the guy, he was very disciplined and he was like, oh, well, now you've proven that you aren't, capable of doing what we need you to do, so I'm just gonna kill you. It wasn't really something that came from anger, it didn't feel like. Or if it did, it was very disciplined anger. Whereas like Kylo Ren just throwing an outburst and slashing up a wall in a ship did not come across that way. But anyway, so General Grievous destroys the battle droid, which also, can you really blame him with how incompetent the battle droids are in this particular show? Anyway, that stood out to me. The next thing that I liked is I'm always happy to see one of these long neck guys from the planet Camino, and there was one of them here, and it put a smile on my face. I remember when I was a little kid, I would play that level on LEGO Star Wars non-stop. And I wanted to take the time to put out a couple quoted lines. Of course, we have the long neck alien saying, you're our only hope, which, sounds a little familiar. A New Hope.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
And then we have, at the very end, Cloak. That doesn't sound quite right. Anyway, that guy, we have him saying, from a certain point of view, which, yeah, is obviously from a certain point of view is something that was said in, was it in Empire Strikes Back or The Return of the Jedi?
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
I guess, I'm pretty sure it was in Empire. Nonetheless, that's a line that is recognizably from the original trilogy. Good line, love it. Okay, so now, here's the thing I have marked on my notebook as a bad thing, and that is, this ship gets damaged as they're flying through this nebula that is full of these space whales, one of which ended up becoming the Starship UK. That's a joke, of course, but the resemblance is there. Both these creatures are adorable. Anyway, one of the clones, the part of his ship, gets damaged, and he's like, "Oh no, part of my ship is damaged!" And then Anakin's like, "Hold it together, buddy." And then he's like, "Okay," and then it kind of seems like the damage doesn't affect his flying at all. So I don't really understand if the damage, why he was going all over the place was just because he was having a nervous breakdown, which could have been. If so, that's acceptable. Or if something happened that fixed his ship. I just didn't understand that part. It's very possible there's something I missed, so if I did, let me know in the comments section below. And we will move on to the moral portion of this episode. And the moral that we can take away from this episode is from Ahsoka, who tells Anakin, "You can do it, but everyone else isn't able to do it." And I think that's a good takeaway, is that when you're a leader, you need to be responsible to make sure that everyone that you're leading has the capacity and are equipped to do what you're leading them to do. So I think sort of the takeaway is when you're leading people, or when people are following you, or you're just sort of doing things with people, to look around and keep your eyes open for what the people around you are able to actually follow you in doing, and what they actually aren't as capable of doing, because not everything that you'll be able to do, the people around you will be able to do as well. So, with that being said, that will be the end of today's class. If you enjoyed this class, you can click right there to take a look at other Star Wars stuff. And there will also be a playlist up there that will be Doctor Who. So if you want to watch Doctor Who, click up there. If you want to watch me talk about Star Wars, click right there. And until next time, that will be class dismissed.